All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go4CEO channel. This is John the Bomb. Building others means business. And I love when I bring on innovators and disruptors, right? This guy is going to be disrupting the health insurance industry. And he's not done it once, but now he's doing it 2 times and he's on boards and stuff. So let me read this quick profile here. In addition to Nomi Health, he's a founder, prolific investor, advisor, board director, and founder of HR tech, healthcare, and AI focused companies. So, Mark Newman, welcome to the Go4CEO channel. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, look, we love to hear the beginning stories. Obviously, you've had a couple journeys in your life already, and, it seems like this Nomi Health scenario is going to be something that really disrupts a lot of things into the healthcare industry. We were talking offline a bit about another couple guests I had on, and I'm excited because I think this is an area where in America, obviously, we need some disruption in this space. Pharmaceutical and all these types of places, industries are make it a little bit difficult on the average consumer or the individual to face a great way to do things, right? And it looks like you guys are doing something fantastic at Nomi Health. So tell us a little bit about that background, how you started, what was the kind of the emphasis of getting Nomi Health started?
Sure. So my background is really simple. Grew up in Canada, moved to Utah when I was a kid, and started my first company in college. So I started HireVue, which was the biggest, largest platform for video-based and AI talent assessment, and spent my entire 20s and early 30s building that business. So 14 years of my life, and we sold it to the Carlyle Group. Started Nomi coming out of that. And the funny part about, this kind of 20-year history of my career is that it's all focused on employer tech. How do we work for the largest employers in the country to totally transform how either they build their teams, support their teams, kind of enable their teams to live their best lives as they do their best work. And so the first chapter is doing HireVue. Then, life happens in funny, mysterious ways, right? I was at the birth of my son. This lovely person comes into our hospital room, says, "Congratulations on your new baby." I said, "Thank you. Who are you?" She's like, "I'm from finance. I'm here to talk to you about your bill before you leave." And she had no idea did I have means, did I have resources, could I pay, could I do this, whatever. She looked at me as this guy has health insurance, but he has a really, really high deductible. There's a really big bill for this birth, and I don't know if we're going to get paid for it or not, right? And I asked her, "Great, like what is it?" She said, "Oh, it's $4,500. I said, "Thank you. Here you go." And I gave her my HSA card, my payment card, like they train us all, in benefits season. She goes, "What do you want me to do with this?" And I said, "Well, how about I just pay the bill?" She goes, "Oh, well, we do payment plans. We do this." I said, "No, what if I just pay the whole thing?" She goes, "Well, if you do that, I'll take 30% off right now." And life happens in funny, mysterious ways, right? I thought I was going to build one company in my life. That was my life's work, my craft, my purpose, my meaning. And we supported tens of millions of people a year getting new jobs, which was a really meaningful work. But then sitting right there, life-changing experience happening on one side, but a whole life-changing experience happened right in front of me. Because I said, "Wait a second, I showed up with money and I got a lower price." I was like, I just had my benefits costs go up 10, 15%. I have siblings in healthcare. And like we always talk about healthcare as it's a clinical thing, right? That white coat moment, in your life when you get the care that you need. But this was a business problem. This was a business of healthcare problem. I showed up with money. I got a lower price. And I looked at my wife, talked to her about it. I was fascinated by this. And I'm like, shit, I guess I'm starting another company because we're going to go do this.
That is great. Well, and the funny thing is, right, is she's sitting there having just given birth to your son, and you're already kind of counting off these new ideas and things. So,
Wait, my benefits costs just went down 30%. Are you serious? Think about all my HR friends. They would love this. Let's go talk to them about it.
It's innovative. It's innovative. I mean, if you think about it, from a perspective of a consumer sitting there, right, that experience is pretty traumatizing, right? From the birth to the actual, hey, some finance person coming in and asking for a bill right then and there. So, all right, So you get the idea. Like every good ideation, there's a turmoil of time that you kind of go through the phases, right? Of thinking of it. Did you go and whiteboard some things? Did you talk to some, fellow entrepreneurs? Did you go into the industry and start to research? What were some of the steps that you took to kind of crystallize this thought and idea that you just came up with?
Absolutely. I did three things. First, well, four things really. First, became obsessed over this, kind of hack essentially. Like if you could solve, because I wasn't solving a clinical problem. Like when we think about healthcare, right? It's that white coat moment in our life, the birth of the child, the fixing of your knee, the saving of the life of a family member, right? Like those things where you have that person that says, I just did it. But behind that delivery of healthcare moment, there's the business of healthcare, right? And I just got fascinated by this business of healthcare question, right? Could I go solve this problem repeatedly? And it turns out it didn't matter if it was physical therapy or primary care or, you name it. It turns out if I got providers out of the collection business, my healthcare cost was cheaper. So why wouldn't I do that for both myself, my family, and then my entire company of 400 people, right? Kind of going and doing this. So it was fascination with the problem, right? Testing it, pushing on it. Second, I then said, this isn't a healthcare problem or a clinical problem. This is a data problem, a fintech problem, right? And an enterprise problem, right? Because ultimately, inside of the world of healthcare, there's a large category of people. So total spend in America is $5.5 trillion. $1 trillion of that is spent by employers on self-insured healthcare, right? Meaning the employers are paying full freight. Your bank's paying full freight, right? Kind of for your healthcare. These organizations can spend $1 trillion on healthcare, which also means they probably spend 5, 8, $10 trillion on other things in their business, if not more, right? Like they know how to spend money and buy stuff, but for some reason we don't know how to spend money and buy stuff on healthcare. But that was like the effect. So I did my first call was to who became my co-founder, one of the best fintech leaders in the world, a guy named Bo Hartman. He was chief digital officer at Goldman Sachs. He built Apple Card and Marcus. He was my client at Goldman Sachs at HireVue. We worked together at Barclay Card, Capital One. I was like, this feels like a fintech problem, right? Like I want to link the bank account of the employer directly to the provider to pay them right now, right? How do we do that? Second, at HireVue, we did a lot of hiring for all the major insurance companies because they always grow, right? Like it's part of the grift. They have to grow to have more expense to say they spend more money on stuff to charge us more. And I got to go talk to them. Right. Like I got to go talk to them because we did all their hiring and I was like, wait, this happened, I'd like to try this out as part of our plan, to do something different. What about this? Your cost could go down. And they told me to basically get the hell out of their office. That's not how it worked. That's not how it's going to happen. That didn't happen, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, it happened. And, I can figure this out. And you just don't want to figure this out, right? Because your model is cost plus. So if costs go down, you lose it. And then like the ultimate kind of culmination of it, you had personal experience kind of proving it. I was able to talk to fintech people to know like how to execute it. My background was in enterprise software. I talked to the payers, the service providers in there. They didn't want to solve their problem this way. But the ultimate part of it was I was like, who else would be upset about this? Oh, wait, all I've been doing is hanging out with HR leaders and CFOs for the last 15 years of my life, transforming how they hire. Well, those are the same people that buy a lot of healthcare. I bet you they'll follow me into the dark again. I'm going to go talk to them. And I bet you they would be upset too, right? Kind of off this, and went back to it. And it turns out that's exactly it. The evolution of health benefits in this world, in our country, it started with companies paying full freight or, the full, like themselves. And then randomly we created insurance companies 70 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever. It's not a core competency or a core focus for any organization. So they just paid the bill, paid the bill, paid the bill. And it's been on an infinite cost curve where the talent doesn't exist to like go do something about it, right? On here. And so I was like, all right, well, you got incumbents that are cost plus that don't want costs to go down. You have employers and families that need costs to go down. And I think we have unlocked the solution. It's not addressing the complexity of healthcare, it's actually simplifying it. It's taking all your spend and putting it on a data platform to know exactly where you spend your money, what you spend your money on, and how you could do it differently. It's mobilizing it with payments, right? To say if I spend $5 million, 10 million, 100 million, $2 billion on healthcare, right? Then like that has money underneath it. We're going to bring that back together, right? To go and mobilize it ourselves. And then constantly solve business problems for any provider and any drug manufacturer and any service provider in healthcare. And that is you get access to the real cost of healthcare when you get them out of the collection business. And we all deal with that over and over again in our lives. We get these random bills, right? We get these random explanations of benefits. This is not a bill. This is that. You have a service, and 6 months later, you're like, I guess I'm supposed to pay this. I have no idea. If you think about if we had to run banks, if we had to run restaurants, if we had to run retailers, the way we run healthcare, the entire economy would just destroy itself. And so for us, it's simplifying the act of understanding, buying, and paying for healthcare for the largest employers in the country. These are the makers and doers. They have huge workforces that make less than $100,000 a year. And when we run our model, it turns out healthcare could, be 20, 30% cheaper, if not 50% cheaper, if we're really right. And we think it's a fun mission to go after. We support millions of people on their data, and then we're moving their money, and now kind of being their network access. And I never thought I'd build a second company, let alone. No one starts out thinking you're going to build a company that's going to be a massive success. Like you always have hopes and dreams, but like you have to kind of go and work for it, obviously, and you have to get lucky. Now I have the opportunity to do it twice, and it's been, one of the greatest fortunate things in my life.
Well, 2 bites at the apple are never a bad thing, right? But in completely in isolated industries is really a unique thing. I've got some clients in my commercial banking world where, they built some really great companies, but then once they either take some equity off the table or, go public or what have you, it's interesting. They'll kind of stay in that industry, but you kind of took an idea and something that popped, right? That you gravitated to that idea and now worked on it, and you matched yourself and aligned yourself with some of the great people that you knew already from the other industries, right? So, all right, so
it's like same industry as employer tech. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like working for employers, but one was hiring and second is benefits. And I've invested in a bunch of learning companies and, and whatever. It's like the whole world around how an employer affects the life outcome and life space of an employee. And
you learned that very well, right? Obviously through the successes that you had. So tell me about, I guess, the intricacies of building this out, because you're fighting an industry that has its set ways, right? It's kind of like going into the oil industry, right? And they're not looking to change anything. Thanks for your idea, but have a good day type of scenario. So what were some of the first dynamics so our GO4CEO community can learn that you're kind of blue oceaning a new strategy within this?
This isn't even like healthcare. The way that health insurance and benefits work in America isn't even like oil and gas. They're like, we have to get oil and gas out of the ground. We have to do it profitably, right? Like, and how you go do it. In healthcare, they're like, we are measured by revenue growth and earnings per share. We do not run a charity, which means we want costs to go up. We want to spend less money on that care, that we have to kind of go do. And we want to obfuscate the data, right? Like the deck is truly stacked against American companies and families around being able to do something about healthcare spend, right? Now, what usually happens, and this was the fortunate nature of it being my second time coming off of a success versus either being a first-time entrepreneur or kind of like not going and doing it. This was pure luck. And what that was the fact that if I was either a first-time entrepreneur or had, not kind of had some element of a track record or kind of understanding of the problem, right, and investors that want to come along with me on it, what would happen is they'd say, let me tell you how this industry works, bring your solution into the current framework around how this industry works, and adapt to how the industry works and work for them. Right. And so you see that across an enormous number of digital health companies and solutions out there. They start off, they have a brilliant idea on transforming the experience for somebody going through something really hard, right? Healthcare is hard, whether it's like getting drugs you can't afford, whether it's surgeries that you need, cancers, you name it, right? And they launch this and they have this idea, I'm going to go and do this part of it. And then unfortunately, what happens is boards and investors then say, tell you what you should do? What? You should go sell it to United, to CVS, to Optum, to Walgreens, name the Blue Cross Blue Shield, HCSC, whatever it is, right? Like you should see they have lots of lives and they know how this world works. See if they'll buy your solution. So 80 or 90% of the economic value gets transferred to them in terms of like savings for the customer or value for the user that you get as a business. And two, you waste 10 years of your life trying to do this, right? And kind of hitting your head. If when I was decided to build a second company, because at HireVue, we were a layer on, meaning we had to layer on to other people's systems. We had to layer on kind of to those things. When I decided we're going to go build something else, it wasn't to go fit into an existing construct of incumbency. It was to go kick the shit out of the incumbents, right? Like kind of on this part of it, meaning there needs to be a new system. There needs to be a new ecosystem. There needs to be a new platform. There needs to be a new core system. Like you saw this in other buckets of HR technology, right? You had, we all remember PeopleSoft back in the day, right? And then SAP and Oracle, and then Workday, right? And ServiceNow and other things like this. Like there's been iterative 15, 20-year adoption cycles of kind of new platform, new ecosystem. And, 20, 25 years ago, there was only one Fortune 100 company that was healthcare related. United Healthcare was like 102, something like that, right? 100, 102. They weren't even nationwide. Okay, like this, it was a small industry, a couple $1 trillion, which is, actually not even $1.5 trillion, maybe, 20 years ago. And now in 2025, 20 of the Fortune 50 are healthcare related. It's a $5.5 trillion market. It's huge. But what that means in the context of how long it takes to build a real enduring business is that they're relatively new. Like think about banking, right? Like how long does it take to build a new bank that becomes successful and a standard and whatever? Right? Like 50 years, 30 years, 100 years, right? Kind of on this. Well, 20 years ago, there was no one in the Fortune 100 that was healthcare related. Now in the Fortune 50, there's 20 of them. They're all stealing from us, right? Like we got to kind of figure out a new model, new this. But what it means is that they're new incumbents. They're not 100-year incumbents. They're not Exxon Oil. They're not Exxon, right? They're not Chevron. They're not, whatever. And they're vulnerable. And they're extracting rent. So starting my second company wasn't let's go build a thing that layers on to another. It was, no, if we're going to go do this and we're going to go spend 20 years building this business, like HireVue is now 20 years old. I've been gone for 6 years, 7 years. If I'm going to build a business that's going to be another 20 or 30 or 50-year company, then we're not going to layer on. And like we're gonna go do it, and that's just been the fun part and the benefit of hindsight, the benefit of the second time, right? And like the being able to be enabled with the capital and the investors and the partners and the believers and the this and the that says like, listen, if we're gonna go take a swing, we're gonna swing.
Swing hard. Let's go.
And go do it.
I love it. I love it. No, and there's a lot of stability in that this is your second time, so you have that wherewithal and understanding, right, of all the bumps and bruises that you had going through the process. So now that you've, at the beginning shared, you brought on some co-founders, some people that were really strategic to the plate of the table that you were at. What were some of the things that you started doing in the marketing side? How are you approaching it? If you really wanted to be disruptive, what are some marketing ways that you were out there in the marketplace? And did you attract initially those databases that you already had, right, by doing the former company and create those, those established relationships?
Yeah, so we were fortunate at Nomi. One, we pandemic is a whole other episode. We had a really we had an opportunity to work for a number of states through the pandemic that brought kind of super accelerated our growth. We did a few acquisitions. We were able to kind of supercharge things quickly. That's a whole other thing. That was a ton of fun. I've always lived by kind of 4 things to build a business. Okay, so the first is deliver new innovation that people didn't think was possible. Okay, so this in case actually cutting healthcare costs. driving massive adoption of that new innovation, right? So like, and let's get to kind of the employers and kind of who follows you into the dark. It's quite funny actually how HR tech works. So drive massive adoption, and third, earn really passionate customers. Just like, oh, that's cool. This is a thing, you know what I mean? You name it. It's like those passionate customers come from doing what you say you're going to do. When there's a problem, you have an incredible firefighting department, right? To kind of go and address it. It's part of a movement that you come and be part of. Like, we are going to transform this thing together because there's a bigger reason of why, right? At HireVue, it was people aren't profiles, resumes, or schools or diplomas. They're stories, ideas, and experiences. We need to use video and on demand and AI and machine learning to bring those stories to life. And when you do it in a structured way and help them demonstrate their ability, like tell their story and demonstrate their ability to work, it turns out that the teams you build came from all sorts of different walks of life you didn't anticipate. They perform better, stay longer, and like they will die for you. So like, let's go do that, right? You know what I mean? Like, let's go build that team together. And that's what we proved with data as well as feeling, right? Same thing, right? Kind of bring it together. On the same thing on healthcare, there's lots of people that show up and say, guess what? We're going to have a savings on healthcare, right? We're going to make your workforce healthier. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. If only they went to the right doctors. If only they went to this place. If only, we could deal with the insurance companies. And we're like, no, we're going to help you know your data, and we're going to bring the best visibility you've ever seen into it. We are going to do exactly what we say around taking that data, mobilizing with payments, and getting real cost advantages and reducing your cost of healthcare. And we're going to do it every single day, better and better, as fast as we can, right? Kind of on this part of it. So you show up and you earn really passionate customers because people are like, I want to do something different. And oh, by the way, it's working. Let's go do something different. And they tell their friends about it, right? So deliver new innovation, drive massive adoption, earn passionate customers. And you get those three things right, and you have the opportunity to build an enduring company, because it's really easy to build a crappy company. Right? Like, it is so easy, right? And it is really hard, to build an enduring company, one that, has staying power, one that exists for decades. And you're like on the precipice every day, right? Thinking you're going to fall off. But it kind of works that way. So from a marketing standpoint, it's like the first rule of Larry Ellison, right? Be able to say whatever it is that you say, make sure that no one else can possibly say it, kind of with this. But it's we just take it. It's like, no, we want people to be part of a movement. We're going to own the microphone around this. Every time that some insurance company says rates need to go up 10%, we have so much data around their market and around that state and around that place that we can speak out and advocate for America's businesses, employers, and their families, right, that work there, to say that's BS. Either the utilization isn't going up, or no, it actually is. Here's how we need to address it, right? Like, let's be the referee with data, right, to say kind of that part of it. But more importantly, when people say, oh yeah, costs have to go up and rates have to go up, and the only thing I can do is this, like, that's a zig and we zag. And we go, no, like, we're not solving this problem the right way. Let's get providers out of the collection business. Let's bring full truth to this data so you know where your money's going, right? Let's kind of go and do this. And in a space where, fortunately, like, incumbents want costs to go up every year, and we exist in a market like, this isn't like smartphones where you're competing against Apple that has wickedly high net promoter score, right? Like, this isn't a consumer brand that you're dealing with incumbents that have like really passionate brand followers that always buy your gear and your stuff and like want to be part of the brand. I mean, I think most insurance companies compete with, would compete with, some of the airline companies, like the one with the door blowing off saying like, could we make this worse? What we do each year to make this experience worse for our members, to not be able to get healthcare and for them to not be able to afford it, so that we keep the difference. And it's a fun place to be countering, right? So we want to show up where they are. If they say that there's data, we have a different point of view. You have them show up in Congress and the Capitol where they're like, oh, well, this is the problem. And we get to show up and say, no, that's not the problem. That's the problem that they want you to believe that's the problem. And this is kind of how we go do it. And we got to show up every day. So it's all channels, all places, from being in the communities to being on TV to digital to online to meeting, meeting this. We just got to keep spreading the word.
Well, Go for CEO community, you see Mark's passion is undoubted. I mean, the passion that you pursue and the way that you bring it out has been incredible in the last 5 minutes. Just sharing every little detail of the way that you've kind of thought about it, processed it, right, assessed, aligned yourself with the right people, and then took action, which is a shameless plug for my book. The 4A Formula: Untangle Any Challenge and Think Like a CEO, coming out soon. So, but Mark, help me understand. So in the community here, we talk about revenue. And you see these two books here. I'm a big fan of Alex and some of the things that he does. And as soon as my book comes out, I'm going to switch out my book to that. But share with us the revenue model of your business. Obviously you're doing this, right? Disrupting the industry, challenging the healthcare providers and showing them real data. So now where is Nomi in that landscape of revenue? How are you working with it? Is it just the enterprises? Are you working with the individuals? Do you go to self-funded, brokers that teach that side of things, or how are you working the revenue side?
For sure. So we work almost exclusively for self-insured employers, which is about 100 million covered lives in America. This isn't a small pool of people, right? On this, it's like 95% of companies more than 200, 300 employees, right? You got to think about that's when you become self-insured. And so from an individual standpoint, that's like our individual work, right? Is when we work for those companies for the people that are on their plan. We generally work with what their TPAs and brokers and consultants, right? So you got the brokers and consultants that kind of do the plan design, and then the TPAs, the third party administrators that run the health plan, right? Because there's a card you get, right? A front door and a this and a that. And for us to be that we felt like those to be the most impactful wasn't going and trying to fight, TPAs, brokers, and consultants. Like they have great businesses. They do what they do. They build trusted relationships with their partners and their customers, right? And like in every market, there's good guys and bad guys, right? Like we want to partner with the good guys, go and do it, go and support them, the ones that are well-intentioned to go support their customers. And then we want to give them the most modern platform to run their plan, their business, their programs better, right? So all their customers can now see all their data. We have all the rates that they need, and we can move all their money and pencil it all out, right? It's really simple. And going and doing it that way, that's how we do it. So we work for self-insured employers, and we have kind of two parts to our revenue model. The first is kind of renting our platform, right, for analytics, for payments, for this, and then we make money off of when we move money on side of it, right? Just kind of standard kind of fintech model off there, and all of it is focused on ROI for our customers and cost savings. And if people say no, we want you to go at risk, like we want you to have a cost save target, right, that you go and do, and here's how we go do it. We're like, absolutely, we'll do that. We'll make you, we'll save you money, and we'll put our money where our mouth is.
So am I following correctly? The both models are either like a SaaS type model where they're subscribing to it,
subscription
right?
model to rent the access, and then when we're moving money and we have to be fiduciary
The
and
merchant processing.
that's part of it.
Okay.
Kind of merchant
So a small fee
processing.
for the processing of it. So
Yep.
Interesting. And have you part of Nomi's structure, is it with these providers that, let's say, doctor at Endeavor here in Illinois, services my need tomorrow, which I'm going to, will that payment flow through the company? Let's say I have UHC as a provider, and then you be able to, process that payment.
Yeah, so the way that would work is your employer would say, "Hey, here's your benefit card, right?" And if we're using Nomi and other companies like that, you're not probably still using United. You rent there. So when you're a self-insured employer, you rent everything. You rent networks, you rent PBMs, you rent check payment services, you rent service providers and whatever, and you cobble together those solutions with your broker and consultant to then deliver a health plan to your employees. Right. But you're essentially just renting their contracts, renting their services, renting their service layer into a thing. When you're self-insured, you're not buying insurance, right? Like you're even renting risk. You're renting from your stop loss providers, right? For extreme events. And we've kind of methodically said, you have other choice, right? Like you can rent, you can have an open analytics platform that powers your plan. You can have your visibility in your own money movement, and for the longest time, people have thought you need to have tens of millions of lives to get the best rates for healthcare, right? It's like volume, lives for price. But it turns out like that social contract is broken because it is so hard to get paid by most insurance companies that the only thing providers can do is price in the risk and ambiguity of non-payment and difficulty of collection into their rate. Right. Like, and so, and that manifests itself in the simple formula. For $1 of negotiated healthcare that you and I get a bill for, an employer is paying $1.20 to $1.30 to even get access to that. And the provider is collecting 60, 70, 80 cents. Like when you go to Endeavor tomorrow, ask them, how long does it take you to get paid $1 that you're owed? And they will probably laugh and cry at the same time. It's why doctors are getting MBAs everywhere, right? Because they think they need an MBA to learn how to run a business. And it's also why they retire. It's also why they sell to bigger roll-up groups, right? Kind of on this. And we think of that, like you're in finance. Think about how much fighting there's always been around spread on credit card merchant fees, right? Of like 2 or 3%. But we deal with a $5.5 trillion market that has a 30% spread in it. Because it's the same thing on fully insured, it's the same thing on Medicare, it's the same thing on Medicaid, you name it. And we just think that's absurd. And we're like, let's cut the spread, right? So, hey, provider, we are going to contract with you directly and we will pay you 80 cents at the time of service. Like as soon as you put in the claim for John, right? And, clean claim, you get paid for it. No collections from John, no payments, no this, no that, right? Just directly paid from us. What's the real price of healthcare? Right. And they say, oh, it's 80 or 85 or, whatever it is right now. And you're like, great. And then when you said about money movement, we have our own bank trust, we have our own payment rails, we have that part of it. So we can pull from the employer, route it immediately to that provider, reconcile it, full data for everybody, and kind of go and execute it. What's crazy is in any other market, it's actually not that novel. In healthcare, you're like, where payments are still 50% through paper check. Feels a little more novel.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I mean, where I'm at on the commercial side, we own our own merchant processing, and it's interesting to kind of see each provider, right, kind of have a little bit of a tweak to how they produce that, and then where the service is coming from, what the value is, the proposition that you're, putting out there into the marketplace. So, all right.
And also think about like in our personal lives, you book a flight to Miami, it comes up with a rental car, hotel, show tickets, weather, you name it, right? And they also know, hey, is this John or not? Right? Kind of on this, is this something he's going to do? If we take that same analogy in our healthcare lives and you booked a flight to Miami, you'd be stuck in Chicago, you'd have the weather in New York, you'd have a rental car in San Francisco, and you'd get a bill for it 6 months later. Right. It's like, so, it's not rocket science. We just have to bring what we do in our personal life and other places and other markets to modernize healthcare.
Well, look, I mean, it makes me think about, some of the trials that you've had throughout this process. Cause, obviously it's an industry, like you said, kind of just stuck in its ways, like many other industries that have not been disrupted. So from a Go4CEO community and a perspective of, all right, what were some challenges that you've faced in starting Nomi Health, and these providers, right, the Endeavors or the whoever's, right, doctor groups, what's been the biggest challenges that you faced for them to say, no, I don't want to get paid immediately?
The first one was retaliation from the big insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So because they are ruthless. These guys, I don't care if they're not for profit, which is a lie, right? It's like not for profit or for profit or whatever it is. Like they're retaliatory and ruthless, like they are in every single market. And so it's really hard if you're a provider in America now, you can't speak out. You can't say it's this, and you're terrified about what's going to happen if. And so you need to create a group environment and ecosystem that it's a rebel alliance. It's not just a one-off, kind of on there. And so we had to find our movers and shakers and pit fighters and, and advocates in this, the people that are like in the arena to say like, no, we're going to do something different. Right. So you had to, have them, kind of be comfortable to go forward with it. Right. That that was one of them. Second part is at different points in time, you would kind of fall, you would fall for the ambrosia, right? You'd fall for like the, oh yeah, we're going to do this government program for, some governor or something. It's in the service of them. It is a direct model, but because they have Medicaid contractors or Medicaid insurance companies or whatever running it, like we're going to run the claim through them. They're going to pay us for the work, but they are told that they have to pay us. And, and you kind of like do this and you kind of take the ambrosia of like, well, it's a lot of lives and it's a lot of spend and whatever. And 9 out of 10 times, and I can speak from this from firsthand experience, they will screw you every chance they get. They won't pay. There was a state that we got brought in to do a direct program, right? Rather than like, hey, replace the health plan, run this program for us in a direct model. And it was about re-entry programs for people that were in prisons and jails that were, dealing with addiction recovery and addiction treatment into a re-entry program because there was a known gap of when they come out to when they can be on Medicaid and when they can do this and when they can do that part of it. And if you've been on MAT therapy and like finally conquered your addiction coming in jail and then you get released and you're like, hey, I'm John, like I need to go get my MAT therapy. I'm not on Medicaid yet. I'm totally sure CVS will give you free drugs to like continue that on, right? Like it's not how the world works. And then they may have had a $10 billion a year Medicaid contract. And you're like, okay, so like before they leave, they should be signed up. And they're like, that's not how it works. We have 60 days. Okay, well, in that 60 days, there is a 70 to 80% recidivism rate of like when people just like fall back down, right? Because they're transportation insecure. They don't have a chance to like really to have their best shot. They don't have a place to live. They're trying to figure it out. Like, you're kind of dealing with a lot of things. It's like 5-year-old soccer, right? It's like you're like sometimes you score a goal and everyone cheers, but like you're not Lionel Messi, right? Like you're not like, on here. And this is a population of people that deserved a world-class relay team because a world-class relay team would like solve this problem, have the handoffs, have these moments that matter, right? And go do it. Okay. So we're like, okay, we work for employers. This is what we do and whatever. And we get asked like, no, we would really love it if you come run this program. You've run high scale programs. You've run this. Like, we think you can solve it. All right. Well, in every healthcare program, there's a ton of volume. Like if your Medicaid MCO is getting $10 billion to run something for you or $5 billion or whatever, like there's a lot of people, right? And so we have a lot of people go into it. And governor directive, corrections directive, we do the work. And they're like, oh, yeah, totally. It's like, we're just setting this up and we got to do the claims processing and we got to figure this out. And we're doing the work. And we do the work for like 6 months while they say essentially the check's in the mail. Okay. We cut recidivism 70%, meaning like we have completely transformed the lives of the people that kind of went into this. It worked. And the 2 MCOs decided to say to the governor, to the health department, to the corrections group, oh, we reviewed this. It wasn't part of our contract. We're not paying for this. And we got jammed $10 million. Now, the backbone of Nomi is that we will be in the arena and that we will go fight and that we will do whatever we can to survive. Because really, like everyone loves to thrive, everyone loves to win. 90% of success is showing up and surviving, right? Kind of on here, surviving kind of long enough as you go do this. And they're like, fantastic. So in most cases, those guys will disappear. And in the flip side of it, now we're like, oh, we know who you are. We are coming for your company. We are coming for your business. We are coming, we are going to go do this. We are going to right this wrong. And like, you better watch out, right? Because like that, and that's how we're going to go do it. We are going to be in the arena and we are going to survive and we are going to go fight. And, that's the challenges. So it's like getting providers to follow you into the dark and then dealing with the dirty games of the space. Or another one was we beat in one state, so for some of the things, like we were in the pharmacy business for a long time and you need to have like 50 state licensure and all these kind of different parts of it, right? And so in one state, we went and took 7 of the 10 largest employers in a 15-month cycle. Okay. Like just took like earned their business, cut their pharmacy costs, did incredible work. We took them from the big 3. We took them from United. We took them from CVS. Okay. They were furious. So what did they do? Well, they didn't try to go like add value to the customer. They didn't go try to cut costs. They didn't try to earn the business back. What they tried to do was go to another state where they tried to get our license revoked for some random reason, because then we would have to tell our customers we're not eligible to do things in all, 50 states, which magically they were, and we would have to get kicked out and we had to, knuckle up, go to battle, go to war with that, insurance commissioner and that, that part of it, kind of explain and expose, and kind of go into it and to say, listen, like we're willing to fight on this one. So like I think you're wrong. Sure enough, we got our license, we kept the customers, and they haven't had a shot to go back. Like this is not incumbents aren't like looking to give their business away, their market away, right? Their profit margins away or whatever. And in a space as big and as lucrative, unfortunately for Americans, as US healthcare, right? From an insurance standpoint and payer standpoint, like these are some of the dirtiest fighters there are. I don't care if they're for profit, not for profit, like, and you just have to be ready for them because they'll do anything they can to maintain it.
Well, you know what? That's an interesting point, right? Because business is war, and in many stages, from infancy, startup to progress to a million in revenue to millions and billions of revenue. So let's share the story of capitalization. Sorry, how are you put together from a funding standpoint? Right? It was obviously you had a success coming out of an exit. I'm not sure if you used your own personal money, but can you share a little bit about as much as you want to share of how the cap table was put together and those strategies so that when these fights come, it takes money to fight them, right? So,
Sure.
did you have also, a law firm, set up and all these types of things that really kind of put those strategies together for these fights?
For sure. Yeah. So when I was building HireVue, raising our initial capital for the business, like I was living at my parents' house. I was still in college for most of it. I couldn't rent a car yet because I was under 25. I was shipping webcams every single day because that's what it needed. And to raise our first $1 million for the business, I was part of the 100 No's Club, right? Like it was nonstop. And finally, someone who had said no twice said yes the third time. Like I'm fed up, like you're gonna come do this. And then we went down the entire path of the VC path, right? And we brought in groups like Granite Ventures and Rose Park Advisors, Sequoia Capital, Technology Crossover Ventures, like great premier investors. I diluted 90% over that journey, right? Kind of on this. And I read every bit of bad advice around, being a first-time entrepreneur and raising money, right? Only raise as much as you need for this thing. Don't give up on this, whatever it was, and just played the game poorly. It was still a life-changing outcome. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but man, it was really expensive tuition when you not only, give up a big chunk of your business, but you also give up the rights and the controls along with it, right? Because price is one thing, terms are another, right? Kind of on this part. So that was a very expensive life experience, both emotionally, economically, mentally, the whole thing. So when you go into your second one, you can't throw away everything, right? You know what I mean? Like, because what made you successful as well were those things. Does that make sense? So you can't say, I'm going to do everything different, right? Because you are who you are and like you kind of go and do it. But you at least try to figure out what your non-negotiables are. So for Nomi, we were fortunate. One, capital raising was much easier than in my first company, right? So your second company is much different and much easier than your first company, whether you've either made people money, you've had a success, they want to be part of your next thing, et cetera, et cetera. So I was fortunate there. And that was like a fast start leapfrog, right? Like when I was raising money for HireVue, I got my first term sheet the day Lehman Brothers went under, right? Like if you want to talk about hard, like raising capital, I don't care if it's COVID or SVB meltdown or whatever, nothing was harder than like mid 2000s from an economic standpoint than, like the 20 people dealing with economic problems in the 2020s have no idea kind of what it was like. So we were fortunate to be able to bring a good group of core equity investors, Rose Park Advisors, which is Clayton Christensen's Disruptive Innovation Fund, Arbor Ventures, and other groups like this that have come around the table. Second, I was like, we are going to control our destiny. right? So we are, instead of 90% of the company being owned by outside investors, we are going to work to have 90% of the company owned by the team, right? So how do we kind of do that and go drive towards that? And that's, kind of, that's a goal and a dream and how you want to go and do it. So you have to be thoughtful around capital allocation, capital deployment, getting profitable early, not having burn kind of be out of control and whatever. Now, that's a great plan. And we were fortunate to be able to execute a lot of that plan. But you're also, again, going back to my point earlier, you're dealing in a space with gangsters who like owe you money and don't pay it. Like the basis of contract law in US healthcare is zero, right? And so we are actually still owed hundreds of millions of dollars from previous work that we did, whether it was during the pandemic or, other things like this, from a couple of the numerous insurance companies and things like this, that just didn't want to do it. So best laid plans are, hey, 90% of the company is owned by the team. We have investors that are aligned with it. We want to capitalize it efficiently, and kind of do this. In general, you end up burning more than you expect. You invest more than than you should at different moments. You don't, you might overspend on things, or you have 10 things that you're focusing on versus just three, and then lo and behold, you do work and don't get paid for it. So we've been fortunate to be able to navigate through those challenges, bring in additional investors and kind of go and do it. And so we're a combination of equity, some debt, and then profit, and then trying to drive towards profitability at any moment. We just recently sold one of our business units that we had acquired, things like this as we've gone along. And, it's, you chalk it up to, adventures and near-death experiences and whatever it is, but that's just like a mental coping exercise. It's really it's like we all have a plan, you want to stick kind of towards it, and you just have to know this is a 10, 15, 20-year cycle, right? As you go through it all. So you need to be thoughtful. You need to, have people that you want to make money for, right? Not just take money from anybody, right? Like you want to show up at board meetings and invite them in and have them there, right? Like you want to have those things because they're going to be, people for life. So yeah, equity capital from VCs, a little bit of, a little bit of debt, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and whatever we need to survive.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I think there's a saying from a gentleman named Ed Milet. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's a great speaker, great entrepreneur, great builder. And he says, entrepreneurship is the greatest self-development course ever on earth, right? Because everything you've done from the first business to this business, you're just learning, you're digesting, you're pivoting, you're creating, you're moving different ways. So it's an interesting journey. And part of the Go4CEO program is in the platform is really about learning these things, right? The strategies, the operations, the marketing, the building of a team, the leading of you as an individual, and it's certainly something that is very evident that you've been able to do over the years. So, as we finish up the interview here, we usually go through CEOs, which is client experience, and just kind of understanding from a value proposition. What is it that Nomi has been doing and will continue to do as a value prop in the customer experience side? Then engagement. You have incredible energy and passion for what you do. So I'm assuming attraction to what you do is awesome. But what are you doing to engage with these investors and the platforms that you need to encourage to use your business and those types of things? And last one is operational excellence. So we'll start with the first one, client experience. When you think about Nomi Health, what is that true value proposition in like 60 seconds?
For once in your entire career, you're going to be able to actually tackle your healthcare costs and deliver something that everyone on your team can actually afford and access and deserve. So
sweet.
Yeah.
Engagement. So engagement,
Yeah.
obviously the energy that you have and the things that you've been able to do and the people that you've been able to meet throughout your career. What are some of the things that you do? Do you do retreats? Do you do quarterly gatherings, dinners? What are some of the ways that you engage your teammates, your investors, and the marketplace?
Yeah, that's been evolving quickly. Like at HireVue, you had your big annual customer meeting and a lot of travel time on the road, and going and doing the dinners and doing the thing, right? And then we all had this kind of few years disruption Like you and I are both talking to each other. I'm at my office, you're at your house, right? And like, where are these teams and are they virtual and are they this? So it's kind of caused a bit of a rethink. In the last year, though, we've really seen it kind of not revert back, but evolve to a new, right? Where what we try to do is figure out who's in what cities. So like you naturally thought before headquarters is in New York, so people are in New York, and you're like, no, 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 no. We need to know that John's in Chicago, right? And so deeper layer client and people intelligence, right? On a localized basis. Where do they live? What are they doing? And then we bring events to people, right? Let's go get together a bunch of peers and have a really great dinner talking about this. Let's have workshops together. Let's bring around not just like people that kind of look and sound like each other, like all tech companies or whatever. It's like, no, like how do we actually kind of learn from each other and kind of and go do that? And then ultimately, on a macro level, we're building, it's like the last Star Wars movie. Like we are building the Rebel Alliance. You had the Empire show up with all the same ships and whatever coming out of that planet, right? And on the flip side of it, then the Rebel Alliance shows up and it's all these different ships and different languages and whatever, and they kind of go and kick the Empire's butt. And that's kind of how we think about Nomi. It's like, in healthcare, we think of it as a national problem, but it's also deeply local. In every town, there's the hospital. In every state, there's the dominant insurance company. You're in Illinois, it's an HCSC blue state, right? It's like you have those kind of different things. You have doctors in every, town. It's very personal. You have then the health systems. You have multiple health systems. You have multiple health systems in Illinois that kind of have their little areas. And so you need to go national macro, but down to local. Right. And that's showing up at being sponsors at the hockey games to, the community events and the organizations and being at those things. And that's where we encourage our team to be close with customers out in the field, kind of being the gatherer, right? Like the convener to kind of bring them all together. And so you have this mix of both online and in person. We kind of think of it as a hybrid approach, but we haven't gone back to like full company customer meeting yet, right? Like a benefit festival or whatever, we haven't done that yet. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how that evolves and how do we think about that format. So yeah.
No, I love it. I mean, we talked offline a little bit about, being this in the Zoom world and
Yeah.
this type of technology is phenomenal, gets us connected pretty quickly and efficiently. But boy, does it make a big difference. Last night I had a dinner with four other individuals, and it was interesting. At that dinner, there's a gentleman in the restaurant that comes up to me and says, "Hey, are you John Andrade?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, I know you through LinkedIn. I see a lot of your videos and the information you share. You're coming out with a book." And it was my first experience of being quote unquote famous, I guess. So it was interesting.
I've seen your face,
Yeah,
I've seen this. Yeah.
so I think technology has helped for all of us to have that kind of that branding, that awareness, that touch, right? And then people are scrolling and doing all these things. But like you said, it's reverting back to, all right, let's have that handshake. Let's really talk to each other. And that dinner that I was at really culminated some things for that for some projects I've been on, and really kind of created that glue between having and breaking some bread together. So really, really awesome stuff. So our last one is operational excellence. I know we didn't touch too much on it, but what are some of the systems, the things that you guys are using within Nomi that's different, or even just kind of comparable to the marketplace? Using HubSpot and these types of technologies, or AI that's built out right now. What are you guys doing to kind of the operational excellence within Nomi Health?
For sure. We want to be using mature modern systems to run our business, and then innovate kind of on wherever we can on there, because we deal with mature modern companies. Right, and so we have kind of two parts. We have our internal operational systems. So you've got your internal management systems, which we went early and it's like, all right, here's NetSuite, here's UKG, here's Salesforce is like kind of core, and making that and Teams and Office 365 making that work really well. Having Copilot everywhere, having this, but then on the background we have Snowflake to make sure that we're aggregating to get everything together. Have our own BI layer inside of it and seeing where that all works. And then it's been a lot of fun with like MCPs and all the kind of AI deployments, right? Of saying, okay, here's like, And here's NetSuite and Salesforce data tied in with Snowflake that does this and shows this now, right? Like that's been totally transformative. That's also required a mindset shift. I mean, we're not huge. We have a few hundred people on our team, but like the role of the product manager has totally changed. The role of the, kind of different things has changed in those sense. So we think of our internal management systems as kind of core traditional systems with MCP and AI layer and data warehouse, to kind of bring all those things together, so that we can, answer the questions we want to answer and drive kind of the insight we're looking for there. Then on the customer delivery side, we're kind of a both kind of buy and build style shop, right? So like it's still shocking to me how many payments companies in healthcare don't actually do their own payments. On there. So because of our background and co-found in the side of it, we have our own bank trust and our own payment stack and our own this and our own that, and kind of that was heavy build. Obviously with AI and MCP and all that part of it. Same thing on the data and analytics front, right? Like we built, on that part of it. And then, what we'll do is, especially when we're integrating in, it's like some of the cool stuff now. It used to be so hard to integrate into other people's ecosystems, right? Or platforms or this. I think one of the biggest unlock tools for any company getting started today is getting really good at the kind of middleware side, right? Whether it's Merge or, one of these kind of tools out there, because you just, AI has been fun, but even these tools have been even more fun because you used to waste months or years trying to get the basics. Right? And now the speed of getting the basics done has, vaporized, right? Or accelerated. It's gone to near zero. So then you can focus on the value adds. And that's where we're really trying to go to.
Awesome. Well, look, Mark, it's been a really incredible interview. I love the passion, right? The energy that you've been able to bring and the awareness of an industry that needed disruption. You guys are doing some innovative things, but like you said, the big boys are there, right? The fight is on, the team is there, and obviously you're growing that from a structural standpoint and making sure that you can have that fight that really kind of makes a difference. So let everybody know, what is the best way to either connect with you or connect with your team? Are there specific, potential avatar clients that can reach out to you in a certain way that would love to know more about Nomi Health?
Yeah, let's start with if you're an employer that's annoyed with your healthcare costs and would like to do something about them, you should reach out to us. It's a pretty big, broad bucket, especially if you're self-insured. But ultimately, reach out to us at nomihealth.com, NOMI health.com. You can also always reach out to me at mark@nomihealth.com. To get moving, ask questions, compare notes. I'm also always available on on LinkedIn and would love to connect up.
Well, Go4CEO community, you see the passion, and I hope that over the last 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, if you've seen this whole interview, go back to these chunks, and then we'll have some shorts of snippets where Mark shares concrete information, drops some bombs, and really does some really neat things to share with you what it takes to go for CEO and build a business that in an industry that's not easy, but to make a difference, he's putting in the effort and put in the right team around him. So, and also, by the way, subscribe to the channel, please. Let's keep on growing the Go4CEO community. Also, and my book's coming out very shortly, the 4A Formula, Untangle Any Challenge and Think Like a CEO. I've had gentlemen like Mark and ladies on that have really revolutionized the way even I think as a commercial banker for my day-to-day. From a former entrepreneur, sold my business in 2009, became a banker, so I did the opposite from entrepreneur to banker. But I'm really excited about what's going on with the Go4CEO community, and thank you so much, Mark. And hopefully we'll have you on in the next 6 to 18 months. We'd love to have you back and share with you or share with the community what's happened with Nomi Health and what kind of innovative things you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me and congrats on the book. Good luck with it.